Hi, my name's Ty Adranis, and I am going to show you today how to set up watch folder network rendering for Adobe After Effects CC 2017. Now, 2015, they got rid of not watch folder rendering, and everybody threw a big old fit. So they brought it back for 2017. So I've had a few questions on how to set all this stuff up. So I'm going to show you. First thing you're going to have to do is I'm over on my one of my network nodes. I name all of my stuff after DC characters. So I'm on White Canary right now, as you can see. I also have Talia Al Ghul as a network node, and I'm going to use Harley Quinn as my main machine. Now, on my main machine, all of my content is on, now you'll notice these are not DC characters, Beavis and Butthead, and that's on purpose. That's how I know that these are my content drives. I have a bunch of other drives that I hook up and unhook up. The way I know that I am on a content drive is it's going to be Beavis and Butthead or King of the Hill or something like that. So anyway, these are my two content drives, and I'm going to map over to them. That's the very first thing that I do. So you can see that not only am I mapped over to them, but they are using the same exact drive letters of V and W. And there's a reason for this. A lot of people say you don't need to perfectly mirror where all of your stuff is, and you don't. If you don't mind copying all of your footage so it's occupying twice as much space on your hard drives. You do it in a process called collect files, and then it collects all of your assets that go into your After Effects project and puts them in a folder, and then that folder is what's used for all your network rendering. That's fine and great. Me, I value my hard drive space, even though I've got terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of hard drive space. I still value it enough to where I don't want that to happen. So I map all my drives on all of my network nodes to where they use the same exact drive letters. You'll also notice I am not using any Macs. There's nothing against Macs. It's just if you're going to use network nodes, you want them all to be one kind. You either want them to be PCs or you want them to be Macs. You don't really want to mix up both. Although technically the After Effects network rendering software can use both computers, you don't really want to do that because the kernel, or the main core code for the operating systems for Windows or Mac, they both use different methods for generating random numbers. So things like fractal noise, smoke, any procedural textures, if you're doing any 3D stuff, it's going to end up rendering slightly different, and you could end up with a flicker. Now, that's not always true, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb, and you'll be really disappointed if you go to render and you end up with a flicker after spending a bunch of money and combining PCs and Macs. So I'm using all PCs. What I'm using for my network nodes is great deal out there. They're not sponsoring this, but out on ServerMonkey you can get a Dell PowerEdge R610 blade server. It's basically like one rack unit server that has two Xeon hexacore processors in it, each at 2.98 gigahertz. So just in case you're wondering, that's a whole lot of processing power for around $400. So I've got two of those guys, and I have them set up on the network. And they also install Windows 10 seamlessly, so you don't have to worry about dealing with a bunch of server software or Linux or something like that. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is, after you get After Effects installed, is you're going to want to start up After Effects 2017. Okay, and the reason why is you want it to add all the plugins, you want it to add all the preferences, you basically want it to run through its like last stage of its setup. So you want it to get through all that stuff. And so then once it's all started up, all you have to do is go to Help, and come on. Ugh, I hate you. All right, you have to go to Help and sign out. And then once you're signed out, it's going to say, are you sure? And I've got to eventually, yes, there we go. Click sign out. And you can tell, like, I'm on these other computers using screen sharing software. I'm using TeamViewer, but if you're on Macs, you can just use screen sharing. You can use VLC, you can use LogMeIn, whatever, but it makes it a whole lot easier if you can like look at the desktops for your render nodes without having to physically get up and go over to your render nodes. So now we close After Effects. Okay, so now we're all signed out of Adobe Creative Cloud. Let's just go ahead and close this window too. You can tell, signed out. All right, now that we're all signed out, you have to go to this folder on your C drive. Go to Users, Public Documents. And if you don't have an Adobe folder in there, create one. And this Adobe folder, then you need to create a new text document. Now this is pretty important, okay? If it says new text document without .txt at the end, cool. You know it's not showing file extensions. If it says .txt, you know it is showing file extensions. Okay, so if it's not showing file extensions, all you need is a blank text document called AE_render_only_node. Do not put .txt. If it did have .txt, make sure it has that .txt at the end. This is a common mistake. So if it's not showing file extensions and you put this .txt, essentially you just created a file called AE_render_only_node.txt.txt, and it doesn't know what to look for. Now that this file is in that directory, okay, so now you need to open another Explorer window and go to C, Program Files. On a Mac, it's a totally different location, but the principle's the same. Go to where your Adobe After Effects CC 2017 is stored and copy the render engine and paste a shortcut to your desktop. Now that you have this shortcut, you just double click it, and if all works, then you get this render engine starting up, and there it is. It started. Now all you have to do is go to File and Watch Folder. Now you go, remember how we mapped all of the stuff? So you go over to your mapped hard drive. I created a folder called AE Render, and that's going to be my watch folder. And I choose that, and I just let it sit there. Now see, it's watching that folder, and it's searching, and it didn't find anything that's in that folder. Great. Okay, so now we can go over to our other render node, and here I'm going to run it through fast forward so you can see all those processes again really quickly. Okay, so now I have a basic thing that I'm going to render. All right, it's about 30 seconds long, and it's just, you know, a basic animation with a depth map on it that I'm translating into like a blur. Let's just increase the blur a little bit more so we can really see it. Let's do it up to like 10. There we go. So when you're back here, you can see it's like a depth of field type blur thingy. It's not the greatest, but whatever. You get the point. Normally I'd use Sapphire, but I don't feel like licensing all my plugins on all my render nodes at this moment. That is another important thing. You have to install all of your plugins and all of your fonts that you intend to use for whatever you're rendering on your render nodes. Some plugins require you to pay for more licenses for those render nodes. Some do not. So keep all that in mind when you're making your project. Okay, so now we add it to the render queue. And here is something that's very important. You have to do multi-machine settings for your render settings. And what that basically does is it skips the multi-machine rendering. And why is that off? That's a very good question. Oh, it's off because we need to go to multi-machine sequence. So multi-machine settings now has this checked. Okay, so you have to have multi-machine settings and multi-machine sequence checked. And by default, this is a PSD. You know how to alter templates. You can change it to any image format you like, but it must be an image sequence or none of this will work. Okay? So now we're going to render it out. Let's create a new folder. It's always preferable to have the folder be something that is blank. So this is going to be test 001. And we'll just put it in there. We'll say save. Okay. So this is all set up now. File, project settings. Turn off your CUDA unless you have an NVIDIA card on all of your stuff. Now is where we collect our files. Collect files used to be right around in here. Dependencies is probably under now. Yes, collect files. Okay. Project must be saved first. Sure, let's save it. Let's try under Butthead. Let's do the Omega Proclamation. Let's just say test. Okay. We do not want to collect all the files. All we want is the project only. If we were doing this, the thing that I mentioned earlier where we didn't have all of our drives mapped exactly, then cool. Now we're also going to want to enable watch folder render and the maximum number of machines. Say you've got 100 machines and you have like 10 editors, right? Well, you don't want to be a douche and eat up the entire network, so you would select how many machines you want to use. Since I'm using 2 render nodes, I'm just going to go ahead and put in 2, but it doesn't matter. I could put in 2,000. If I've only got 2, it's only going to use 2. All right, then collect. Where do we want to put this sucker? We're going to put it in AE render, and this is going to be test. Okay, save it. So now it's there. It's in test. Now if we look at our 1 second, 0 seconds, it's going to cycle through to pick it up again. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it should pick it up. And there it is. It's picking it up. Okay, and we'll be able to see this because if we go to the render images under farm test, we can see that it's cruising along, rendering 2 frames at a time on those 2 machines. Not only that, but I am still free to move about the cabin and work on my local machine. Or I could also start up rendering on my local machine. Let's see how that works. Let's start up. It may cycle through this whole thing before I get to that though. Let's do Adobe After Effects CC 2017. Where is it? There it is. Okay. And it is booking through this render. Luckily there's like 600 frame, or yeah, I think there's like 600 frames, something like that. Okay, so yeah, close that, and we'll go to watch folder, and we'll go to the same folder, AE render. Yep, choose, and it should pick it up. 3, 2, 1, 0. Picked it up. Okay, see how it started off right where the other guys are at, and now it's really cooking along. Okay, and it is going. Much better, right, than just having to hit render and sit there and sputter. And if I want to cancel, I can cancel it on this machine or all machines, but let's stop it on this machine because I want to get to work and do some other stuff. And that's all pretty cool, isn't it? And it keeps going. And no, it doesn't lose the frame it was working on. It automatically deletes the frame that it was working on, and another machine will pick it up. So you don't have to worry about any of that. If somebody comes back from lunch, say, and wants to jump on their machine, they can stop the render, and you don't lose the frame that it was working on when they stop the render on their machine. So you can set this up on all the deals in the office. Now let's go ahead and stop it on this machine too, and I'm going to show you how to set something else up, which is pretty cool. Okay, so say you want to set it up to where every night when everybody goes home, it automatically starts rendering at a certain time, or it starts listening for a watch folder at a certain time. Or you want it to where, like, if somebody's going to lunch, they can just click on something on their desktop and everything will start up for them automatically. Well, what we can do is we can create a new text document, and this one's going to be called aewatch.bat. Now remember what I was saying about like the automatic file extensions? Well, this is why you should disable hiding file extensions. And here's how you do that. You go up to file name and extensions. Okay, now what we can see is .bat.text. So let's remove the .txt, and we've just created a batch file, and this is something that can run. So now let's edit it, and we've got this nifty little script. And where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It's in my article, which is right here. Copy, and we put this in. And what this does is this automatically starts up a watch folder on AE Render. However, this isn't the actual deal, right, to go to After Effects. So let's see what the actual file folder structure is. It's C, Program Files, Adobe After Effects, CC space 2017. Space 2017. Then we go into 2017. Then it's support files. Then it's After Effects.exe. Okay, so that should work now. File, save, close this, and then say I want to go to lunch, but I want you to be able to render. All I have to do is double click this, and it starts right up. Already set up for that watch folder. Pretty cool, huh? And so all you have to do if you want this to automatically happen is to run task scheduler and add that batch file to the schedule, say at like 8 p.m. Then when they come into work, they just hit cancel on this thing and close the sucker out, and then they can get to work without the render interfering with them. Pretty neat, huh? Okay, so this has been Ty Adranis, and hopefully this helps you guys out on how to set up network rendering for Adobe After Effects CC 2017.